Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Major.
I just lost audio.
Oh, sorry. I muted myself.
Yep.
I was trying to mute you. Woo. All right. Well, everyone's going to freak out for a second when they see that happen, but we're all here. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. If it is your first virtual event with Majors and Quinn, thanks for coming. If it is your 7th virtual event with us, thank you so much for coming back, for supporting our events program in all of the forms it's taken over the past couple of years. It's really fun to see a bunch of people already out in the audience. And I see a bunch of great comments already. So I can tell that many of you already are familiar with tonight's author, Bill Meissner, who has been a friend of the store, has done events in the store as well. And tonight we're going to be doing a baseball-themed doubleheader. We're going to talk about two new titles that Bill has written about baseball, collection of short stories called Light at the Edge of the Field, and a collection of prose and essays and photographs called Circling Toward Home. Both of those titles are available through the Majors and Quinn website, so I will be putting links to those in the chat. So if you want to head over to majorsandquinn.com during or after the event, you can support Bill that way. If you do that, thank you so much. You're not only supporting Bill, but also our bookstore. I'm going to introduce Bill, and then he's going to do some readings, and they are going to be accompanied by some wonderful photographs that you will be able to see in the book Circling Toward Home. So if these photos pique your interest, you should definitely check out the rest of the book. And then I will come back towards the end of the show. I'll ask Bill a few questions, and then we will open it up to questions from all of you. So you can ask those at any point during the broadcast. Just type in, if you're watching on YouTube, type in on the YouTube chat. If you're watching on Facebook, type into the live comments that are happening. Thank you so much once again, and please allow me to introduce Bill Meissner. Minnesota writer and teacher, Bill Meissner grew up in Iowa and Wisconsin and has been a lifelong baseball enthusiast and/or player. In recent years, he's been taking photos of the unique, nostalgic settings of small-town amateur baseball fields. As his collection of photos grew, so did the idea of writing short prose pieces to accompany them, and the result is one of the books that we'll be speaking about tonight. Meissner is also the author of 10 other books, including 3 previous baseball-themed books, Hitting into the Wind, Spirits in the Grass, a novel for which he won a Midwest Book Award, and Light at the Edge of the Field, which we'll also be hearing from a bit. His latest book of poetry is The Mapmaker's Dream from Finishing Line Press, and he has written articles for Minnesota Twins Magazine, Minnesota Monthly, Baseball Cards Monthly, for which he interviewed such baseball stars as Nolan Ryan, Kirby Puckett, Ken Griffey Jr., Paul Molitor, Dave Winfield, and Don Mattingly. He lives with his wife Christine in St. Cloud and plays occasionally with a pickup group called the Catch and Release Baseball Club. Bill, thank you so much for being here tonight, and on with the show.
Well, thank you, Annie. I'm happy to be here. And I've got a little, pardon my voice, I've got a little laryngitis, too much screaming in the grandstands apparently. But I have a title for my talk, and I'm calling it A Grassroots Baseball Non-Lockout Reading, featuring a musical introduction by Bob Dylan and audience participation with your help, which will have 60 weird and unusual small-town baseball team names. So we'll get to that eventually. I'm going to read about maybe 10 excerpts from the couple of books. But you're probably wondering about that Bob Dylan introduction. Now, some of you have heard of Bob Dylan. He won the Nobel Prize for literature, not even for writing and music. But and I asked him if he has anything about baseball. I mean, everybody knows some of his works, and of course, things like a Rolling Stone songs, like absolutely famous songs that Bob has done. So he said he didn't have too much about baseball, but for this reading, he's got a little thing he could give me. So he sent me an actual cassette tape, and if you can believe it, Bob's very high tech apparently. So I have a cassette player. And so here he goes, and here's the musical introduction. I hope you guys can hear it out there.
Nellie Kelly loved baseball games, knew the players, knew all their names. You could see her every day, shouting her out when they play. Her boyfriend by the name of Joe said to Coney Island, yeah, let's go. Then Nellie started to fret and pout, and to him I heard her shout, take me out to the ball game, take me out with the crowd, buy me some peanuts and cracker jacks. I don't care as I never get back, let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. Oh, it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
There he goes. That really was Bob, by the way, from a YouTube. So the next time you go to the stadium, be sure to sing it with that nasal twang, and I think it'll come through pretty well. So I'm going to read a little short introduction from the collection called Circling Toward Home. That's the one with the photos and short writings in it. And this is part of the author's note, which sort of sets the tone for probably for the rest of the reading. And it's part of my author's note at the start. So a couple of sentences about that. If you look at a well-used baseball, you'll see that the scrapes and scuff marks resemble a map. I've followed that map for years, and during that time, the game of baseball has taken me on a kind of journey. Not a road trip following the winding back roads of America, but a journey just the same. What I eventually discovered is that baseball is a game which in many ways parallels human nature with its aspirations and shortcomings, its disappointments and triumphs. The prose pieces of this book attempt to capture the essence of those moments. Consider this thought expressed by a wise coach who might have doubled as a Zen master. A field is just a field. It's no baseball field until you mark off fair and foul lines with the wide reach of your arms. It's no diamond until you mark home by where your feet finally choose to stand. Yes, a worn baseball is a map, but only if you look at it closely, only if you dream. So begin the journey with me. Take a step toward home plate. It's always closer than you think. So for that book, I ended up taking probably 1,000 photos over a period of a few years, and then ended up writing short prose to go along with it. So it's a lot of fun to do it. And because they were short pieces, also rather easy for me to do it too. So Annie is my technical wizard, and she's going to post a couple of pictures with some of the readings. So if you can do picture 1. Okay. So I have a section of the book that describes different kinds of weather, from clouds, thunder, rain, lightning. And this is a sort of personification of clouds. We are called cirrus, cumulus, stratus, nimbus. We are the gods of the sky. The batting cage foolishly thinks it can hold us inside it. Summer afternoons, we rule the field, causing a new baseball propped high in the air to be lost in our whiteness. Other days, we cover the sky with a tarpaulin of gray, and everyone down there feels suddenly melancholic. But most times, we grace the field with beauty, painting the azure sky with our wispy artwork. People look for ancient faces hidden in our swirls. Though we know we'll always be pushed away by the wind, we try to stall and linger over a field, waiting for a high fly ball to almost, but never quite, touch us. Our wings grow wings. And like your future, we always seem so close, yet so far away. And if you look, this little piece has people look for ancient faces hidden in our swirls. If you look at the upside down face, I don't know if you can see it a little to the right. Oh, Annie's circling it. Yeah. It's an upside down face of what looks like a gray bearded sage, which is apparently it's the god of baseball. But I didn't even see that image in the photo till like maybe months after I took it. But if you can see it up there, you win the prize. So if you want to go to photo number 2, Annie, there we go. Thank you. That one's on a little field in Sartell. The god of baseball was taken in St. Joseph near Collegeville Field. And this is a personification of a baseball. And over the years, as some people who know me realize that I'm very lucky with picking up baseballs. So I have approximately 1,300 baseballs that I've found over the years. And I give a lot away, obviously, or I'd be overwhelmed. So this is called the heart of the baseball. A baseball has a soul. This I know to be true. Maybe it's not exactly the kind of soul most people picture, but beneath its leather shell and those hundreds of yards of wool and string, it's still a soul. Soul of a man or a woman in a remote mountain town in Costa Rica who have hand sewed the 108 stitches on the cover, the ball propped on a wooden stand. The soul of the person who lifts it from the field and throws it, the person who catches it in a mitt, a person who keeps dropping it to the hard ground. The soul of someone who hits it with a bat and sends it 5 feet or 50 or 500. The soul of the person who doesn't believe in themselves yet, who thinks they're too small or too weak or too different. Someone who swings at it, missing it again and again, and then keeps swinging until they finally make contact. These things I believe. A baseball has a soul, and it's a lot like the spirit of the person who stands on an emerald sea of grass. As they cradle the leather sphere and make a wish, they look toward home and think about where they've been, where they're going, and where they are right now. Right now, lift the ball from its slumber inside an old leather glove. Run your fingertips along the worn smile of its red stitches and sense the dreams circled inside its cushioned core. Feel its weight, heavy and light as the whole earth. Feel the way a baseball is round but not perfect, the way it nestles in the palm of your hand. Feel its vibrations, its steady heartbeat. Though it seems to be silent, listen for that faint humming sound, a melody coming from deep down. Don't be afraid if you let yourself sing along, or dance, or believe that you too could rise suddenly into the air and fly. So the third one I'll read is dedicated to a pal, a childhood friend who I actually played baseball with a couple of summers ago. So there's no photo for this one, Annie. And his name is Steve Lyon, and he's out there in Pennsylvania watching, I think. So the years go by, and it's a little passage called Chalk Lines, which is a description of the way Steve and I would play, thinking about we're going to make the major leagues at some point in our lives. And as it turns out, neither of us quite made the major leagues, as you can probably guess. So it's chalk lines. Kind of, if you think about it as the dreams of a kid that are unrealistic, dreams and goals that you never quite reach. So this excerpt is about that. The spring of freshman year, when the ball field at the edge of town exploded with grass brighter and greener than I'd ever seen it before, I played baseball. My best friend Steve Lyon and I practiced on the old West School field. All afternoon we'd pitch and hit and field in the heat until around 5 o'clock. We'd cross the highway intersection to Kluge's gas station, sit on card table chairs, and drink cold strawberry sodas. Sometimes we'd take off our ball caps and gaze at them, noticing where the sweat had evaporated from the bills in salty rings. Pools of sweat, lakes of sweat, oceans of sweet sweat. Our t-shirts stuck to metal chairs as winded, we'd lean forward and stare at the dank, paint-chipped wall. Without saying a word, we knew what each other was thinking. Though we were only 13, we were imagining chalk lines all the way to the majors. We already knew the major leaguers yearning. It's that squint when there's no sun in the eyes. It's the eagerness for home runs, for diving catches, even though you're nothing more than a gawky kid. Even though sometimes you feel lost, walking beneath an endless sky of splintered high school bleachers and rusting beams. So for Steve. So Annie, if you want to throw photo 3 up there, that would be great. So not a piece I'll read with it, but that's one of my favorite photos, and the caption and short prose is called The Dream Kids. It's a favorite picture. I took it at the island of St. Thomas in Charlotte Amalie, but it kind of epitomizes the love of kids for baseball and just the spirit of that. So anyway, it's pretty amazing to go to the island of St. Thomas and see teams and leagues and players of that type. So Annie, if my voice holds up, we're going to 4A and 4B. So the next two. So both of these are little old abandoned fields, especially that second one with the base. No real outfield out there. You can see some weeds growing right next to the third baseline. And kind of a haunting field. And I do like visiting small fields like that. So I wrote a piece, and this one is called The Romance of Certain Abandoned Baseball Fields. Though the back stump of this ragged field is curved and dented, the wires still braid together in diamond shapes, like lovers who refuse to let go. First base is a piece of plywood someone tossed down. It's only an inch thick, but it has buoyed up the soles of 1,000 shoes. Safe or out. Those are the only 2 words that the first base knows. Second base is tentative. Its wood warped, curled slightly by the staring sun. Wan and bleached, with a dark spiral knot in the center, it worries perpetually about its heart being stolen. Third base whimpers. Because triples are rare, this lid from a cardboard box always feels ignored, lonely, and not touched often enough. Like the floor of a house where people rarely come to visit, it is always waiting. The grass of the outfield is always overgrown, always, but get used to it. It can never be tamed, can never be separated from the wild weeds or the stark saplings that spike from it, their stalks scratching the morning sky. On warm spring evenings, when the insects grow silent, if you listen hard enough, you can hear the sound of the grass growing, a soft, sighing song. There are no outfield walls, of course. The field goes on forever, forever, forever. And then last but not least, what about the plate, home plate? There is no thick rubber slab here, like the ones on regulation fields. In fact, there's nothing here at all except a worn spot, so you have to imagine home. Or you could try to duplicate it using whatever you can find. A leather mitt, a book, a tennis shoe left by someone, a discarded high school love note held flat by 4 small stones. Maybe even a square of sunlight, or a slice of a dream. Home plate, it's the place where after the game is over, you meet at midnight, one on each side with your new lover. It's the place where the moonlight shines down and makes the powdery dust between you glisten at the moment you lean toward each other for that first kiss. So very romantic. So we've reached the portion of what one of my favorite parts to read is amateur baseball team names. and they're quite weird. So, and since I can't see or hear any of you guys out there, you have to just mumble or bark these out as I read them. I've got 60 very weird names, and I'll give you a pause in between each so you can say them aloud. So don't be shy. So this one is called Amateur Baseball Team Names That Roll Off the Tongue. Say them proudly and as fast as you can. So here we go. Rockies, Redbirds, Red Devils, Blue Ox, Rocks, Flames, Comets, Chargers, Chuckers, Stingers, Shockers, Bombers, Bandits, Orphans, Gnats, Gussies, Colonels, Wood Ducks, Lakes, Lakers, Springers, Muskies, Loons, Swans, Catch and Release, Steves, Skis, Spiders, Serpents, Saints, Villains, Diamondbacks, Dutchmen, Icemen, Freeze, Jacks, Lumberjacks, Aces, Bucks, Bees, Fusion, Wildcats, Polecats, Hogs, Hawks, Stone Ponies, Roadrunners, Bullfrogs, River Dogs, River Cats, Rail Dogs, Mud Cats, Mud Hens, Snurd Birds, Low Gators, Billy Goats, Butter Makers. So there they are. So can you imagine a team called the Butter Makers with it written across their shirt? Very proud player. Yeah, I play for those Butter Makers. We have a real good team over there. So, and I wonder if anybody turned their head when you said the name Butter Makers and kind of looked at you in shock from the room next door. Just wondering. So I've 6A and 6B are coming up, and if you can do those two. So yeah, that one. Yeah, there we go. So keep that one on for a moment. It's that's actually a dugout on a baseball field in Cobá, Mexico. Super remote area. You can see the vines hanging from trees out there. Limestone. Actually, the dugout is made out of bamboo with I think it has a tin roof. So very basic field in Cobá, Mexico. And if you want to show the other one, Annie, the one with so another example of a field, that one was in Acamal, Mexico. And very basic grandstand. As you can see, the home plate is just sort of an X where they cross the lines together. And pretty rugged fields. So what I love about visiting fields like that is the fields are absolutely basic, but the players and the locals have such enthusiasm for the game. And I think that's pretty amazing. I have a couple of short stories in this book, Light at the Edge of the Field. And they're set in Mexico with Mexican players, kind of everyday players who sort of dream about making it to the major leagues. So I'll read just a passage, a couple of paragraphs from this one. And it's a player who lives in the Yucatecan area of Mexico. And it's called El Relampago. And these are maybe the first 4 or 5 paragraphs of it. He'll tell you his name is Rivera, and he has begun to believe that his feet have wings. He'll tell you his name is Rivera, and he lives just a mile down the road from Chichen Itza, the famous Maya ruin, and he plays baseball in the Mexican Winter League. But more than anything else, he wants to play in the American major leagues. His name is Rivera, a small, lithe man who feels well but does not have great batting power. So he's learned to develop his one talent. And his talent, he will tell you, is his speed. His speed, velocidad. When he runs the base paths, he thinks of himself as the speed of sound, the speed of light, the speed of time. He's come to be known as the best base stealer in the Mexican leagues. El Relampago, his teammates call him, lightning. You could be a legend in the American big leagues, his teammate Luis once said, if only they'd give you a chance. Though Rivera shrugs, he knows how much he wants to run after that chance, knows how he could catch up to it, no matter how far out of reach it might be, knows he would dive for it the same way he leaps headfirst into the second base safely, his outstretched fingertips reaching it in plenty of time to fall in love with the worn canvas bag. Next page. This evening, after a long day of work, many people in the village think of sleep. After a few minutes in the hammock, Rivera swings his feet to the hard-packed ground, strolls over, kisses his wife on the cheek, and turns from her. Corriendo? Jacinta asks, as she always does. Running? Sí, he replies. And he's already cutting a diagonal across the yard of their small thatched roof house, leaping over the twisted oil drums in the ditch and jogging down the road toward Chichen Itza. So obviously the story goes on from there, and that's the beginning of Rivera. So I need to do a couple of shout outs to family and friends. So our son Nate is in Kentucky, and he's probably online out there somewhere. I have to have another shout out to my wife Christine, who's actually, she's in the room next door, so I don't have to shout too loud. She's on a laptop. Hi, Chris, watching. And there's a couple of Star International participants. If you're still with us, Anita Doolin, all the way from Ireland. Another is Maria Jose Montoya from Costa Rica. And hi also to Sim, who's watching, I think, from Malaysia, country of Malaysia. And then, of course, all former and current students and all my pals and friends out there. I love all you guys. So cheers to all. And speaking of Christine in the next room, I'll read this one. This is called, it's a tribute. Chris is probably is my number one editor for writing. But she also once in a while goes out and hits baseballs, and I get slightly close to her to try to get a pitch over the plate, and she's pretty good at hitting a line drive that comes right back to me, or at me. So here's Baseball Wife at the start of the season. It's beautiful to watch. She's never swung at a baseball before, but when I pitch the ball to her, she swings, and monarch butterflies rise from the wooden barrel. She swings, and sunlight scatters like shards of splintered glass. My batting gloves are worn and loose on her hands, grime darkening the leather palms like storm clouds. She swings again, and the clouds vanish. Swings once more, and last year's oak leaves scatter from the bat, and a trumpeter swan arcs gracefully over the field, heading north for the spring. Take a break, I say, after a half hour, knowing she must be tired. But she won't step out of the batter's box. She crouches there like she's memorizing every scar on that weathered home plate, levels the bat over it like she's leveling the horizon, and waits for me to toss one more pitch. She'd stay on this diamond until evening, until it's too dark to see the ball, her hands learning the resonant song of leather and wood and leather. In the middle of the night, we lie on a wrinkled field of sheets. I'd cross 1,000 chalk lines to embrace her. She reaches toward me, her soft, strong arms aching, but still dreaming of just one more swing, a swing that would hit the moon squarely and shatter it to luminous pieces, doubling the stars in the night sky. So Annie, we're going to pictures 7A, 7B, and 7C. Strange little pictures. So that's one. You can circle that grasshopper up there if you can. So there it is. And then there's a third one also. There is pretty clearly seen there. So I was hitting baseballs on an empty field and jogged out to pick one up, and there was this grasshopper just sitting on the ball. So I thought I'll get a couple pictures of him before he springs loose or jumps off it. But oddly enough, he stayed on the baseball even when I reached down, picked it up, and walked like 300 feet back toward home plate. So he just stayed on the ball all the way back. So he is officially the Grasshopper King. So that's what I called him. And a little short sketch to describe him. The Grasshopper King. The instant it stops rolling, he claims it. And now it's his little world. He owns it, every inch, every country on his small empire. He clings to it, exploring its map of red stitches, its well-traveled leather terrain that keeps invading his lush forest of green. He owns it until, finally, tiring of this kingdom, he decides to spring from it with a sudden click, flicker through the air with a soft buzz, then disappear in the deep weeds beyond the third baseline, where he waits to conquer the next one that rolls toward him. So back to the short story book, I have a character named Darren Spahn, who's a very fastidious groundskeeper and one of my favorite characters in the book. Completely invented character, but I like him. I've seen enough groundskeepers on fields that so by the time I've watched what they do, I could end up writing some details about them. And Annie, if you want to throw on photo number 8, that would be great. There we go. You can see those kind of circular patterns. That has a lot to do with this description. And a short passage of his life and times. So it's called Another Day in the Life of a Groundskeeper. Excerpt from a longer story. So much depends on his small baseball field, set between the green rows of the cornfield and the pale stones of the cemetery. So much depends on the way he tends the grass, watering it on the last days of summer, so it burns green as long as it possibly can. He waters it until the grass blades reach up with their thin fingers to touch the leather soles of his work boots. No matter if people in town say he's obsessed with this field and call him an oddball, Darren Spahn knows a lot depends on the way he bends down to check that white chalk line along the third and first base lines. He knows that if he wavers the slightest bit, fair becomes foul, and foul becomes fair. He loves to begin mowing on the outside edge of the pitcher's mound and then circle around and around, the way his father taught him. Each circle surrounds the one he's just mowed. Sometimes when he's finished, he climbs to the top row of the bleachers and gazes out at the nap of the grass, carved in a spiral. And he thinks, yep, that's it, all right. He thinks about how you start with one small circle, then make a second one, a little larger than the one before. He thinks about how eventually you could mow around the whole planet that way, circles around circles. All the while, almost without your knowing, the sun circles across the sky and the earth circles around the sun. It's then that, feeling suddenly a little dizzy, he realizes how tiny he is, how humble we all should be, and how he's not much different than a single blade of grass circled by billions. The groundskeeper. And the last one I'll read is from, it's called The Things You Lose in Elusive Kind of Light. This one is a nostalgic and kind of rather sentimental father and son piece. When you're an aging ball player, what you lose is not your old glove, that oil-softened mitt you used each season from Little League to high school until its leather fused with your flesh. Even though it was left behind in a box in the attic or maybe forgotten on a dust-blown field somewhere, the glove is not what you lose. What you lose is not that faded Mickey Mantle baseball card passed down from someone's dad and traded from kid to kid on playgrounds. What you lose is not your Little League Champs t-shirt, a shirt that shrunk smaller and smaller each year. And you don't lose that vacant lot where you played baseball when you were just 7 years old. It was a place where in the early evening fireflies rose from the deep grass and into the air, their tiny yellow lights blinking at you as you tried in vain to catch one in your cupped hand. Every few seconds they light up, but always somewhere else. When you asked your dad, who stood there with you, how fireflies can glow like that when they're only insects, he said he didn't know. It wasn't electricity exactly, he told you, but a power we humans don't understand, an elusive kind of light. As you walked home, he slid his arm around your shoulder and told you a story about how each tiny firefly is like the soul of a person. That field is gone. An aluminum-sided rambler suffocates home plate. You'll always miss those lost gloves and baseball cards and t-shirts and fields. But the real thing you lose is more important than that. What you really lose is the person who took you to that field each day, the person who always walked by your side. What you lose is the act of lifting your baseball in the stillness of late afternoon and tossing it across the blue air between you and your father. What you lose is that game of catch, that arcing connection between your hand and his hand. Years after your father is gone, something tells you to walk at dusk from your house to an empty ball field at the edge of town. There you pause, seeing a few blinking lights above the grass. You believe your father could be there in one of those faint, tiny lights, speaking to you in a fluttering code you can't quite understand. So you stroll towards the center of the field, surrounded by those tiny illuminations that glow yellow for an instant, then go dark, then glow yellow again, but always in a different place. And though you know how hard it would be to catch one, you still reach out with your cup palm. You reach out as if you believe it would be that easy to grasp an elusive kind of light. So I thank you all for listening, and I think Annie, we're on to questions or comments. Or
Yeah,
thanks for working with those pictures, by the way. Not an easy task.
Gave great direction. All right, I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen. There we go. So we already have a question from Deb. Great question. So Deb was commenting on the photos that you've shown and in the rest of the book. They're very evocative, and the images are sort of poetic. And as we mentioned at the beginning, you are also a poet, so you're multi-talented that way. Did you ever consider, when you were thinking about putting words with the images you were taking, why prose? Why did you consider doing some poems to go with them? Or
well, actually, some of the pieces are prose poems, so they either started as poems or kind of converted into a short prose piece.
Nice.
So, but that's a good question, and it and the pictures that I chose out of 1,000 something I took they are sort of poetic. They have kind of a mystical quality to them. So, but I never started out writing a book with photos and accompanying prose. I just started out taking some of those pictures. And then eventually I liked some of them so much that I thought, wow, I could place these into a book and maybe have accompanying writing with them. And then actually my wife and son both said, yeah, go ahead and do it. Maybe you should just do a bunch of them and see what happens. That was just last summer. So I thought, yeah, I'll pour into it and see if I can do it. But I have to say it was the easiest book I've ever written. Others take 10 years. This one, I worked on it off and on for a few months. So quite a thrill.
Yeah. Well, let's talk.
By the way, too, if there's a question that's too difficult for me to answer, I'll have my substitute answer it. This is my umpire. So just in case.
Okay.
If there's any tough ones, he'll come in.
Well, that's a good time for me to mention, if any of you are joining late or didn't hear the beginning or haven't noticed that you could type into the chat, if you have a question for Bill, you can write it in the chat section of YouTube or the comments section of Facebook, wherever you're watching from. So we've got time for more questions, and let us know if you have them. I'll just go through a couple of the comments here. We've got a hello from Nokomis. We've got a lot of comments on the names, the minor league baseball names.
Oh, okay.
Buttermakers. What is a snurd bird? Does anyone know?
That's a very important question. I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah, snurd birds. Did I hear that right?
Low gators is another odd one.
Yeah.
But those are all actual current teams mostly in Minnesota.
That's so amazing.
So none are made up, and they're all amateur small town teams. Actually, the Buttermakers is a little town in southern Minnesota. It has 61 people.
So they're all on the team.
Apparently, yeah. Well, like 20 are in the stands. The other 10 are on the field. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, my favorite minor league baseball team name is, I was in Lansing to visit, my partner's sister went to college there, and their minor league baseball team is the Lugnuts, and it's like literally a little screw mascot. And,
that's pretty good. I like that one. I'll add that to my list.
Yeah. All right. So we have a couple of questions here. Okay, here's a question from Maria. Was that last piece you read inspired by and written for Nate? Or was it more about you and your?
The last one? And is that Maria Jose?
Yes.
Hey, Maria. She's over in Costa Rica. That's a town in Iowa, in case you didn't know. No, really Costa Rica. No, that was written for my dad, actually. And then the main image is fireflies kind of floating over an empty field. So yeah, it's a sentimental father-son piece, and I think it probably ties to not just my experience, but other people, fathers and daughters, a parent who's gone that you miss. So that's the connection for me. But good question, Maria. Gracias.
Yeah, here's one from Chelsea. Excellent reading, Bill. Mixed media with photos and writing works well. Did you have photography practice? What type of camera did you use?
Basically, it was just a phone camera on all of them. Yeah. I had another smaller regular camera at the beginning, but excuse me, images weren't as sharp as once I got a better phone with a better camera in it. So it's just a Samsung. So that's, I can take dozens of pictures in a row out on a field somewhere and come back and look at them quickly.
Yeah. And did you do any photo editing?
I had to do some editing. And it seemed like, this might drive some people crazy, but for each image that I like, I probably took 15 or 20 because the angle wasn't quite right, or some other things weren't quite right. Actually, there are a couple of pictures that we didn't see. Do we still have a little bit of time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we skipped two of my favorite pictures that I think we skipped over. Let me see if I can find them. Can you see the one of guys sitting by an opening in the fence?
Yep.
And some kids facing the fence?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, those two are both those two both fit for small town rural baseball images. So
Oh yeah.
that's a favorite one. And that's home of the Gussies, in case you're wondering.
The Gussies.
St. Augusta, but pretty classic look to, the kids all with their hands up on the screen there
Mhm.
on the fence. And then if you want to show the other one too, that's an all-time favorite. Those are some people from the Cold Spring Rockies, I believe, and it's
Mhm.
before a tournament game. I happened to be standing behind the fence, and they jumped out of trucks and piled in there and kind of sat looking through a gap in the fence. Their game was coming up next. But for some reason, I like the formation of that. It kind of reminds me of like I don't know what, a French painting. Like if you place everybody exactly, one with his hand up,
Yeah, it's very
one
composed.
one subdued, one lying down. Yeah, it looks like Renoir or somebody. So
Yeah.
anyway, I love that picture. Yeah, I did about 3 of those. Had to pick just one for the book though.
Yeah, that's great.
So thanks for showing those. Yeah, I forgot about mentioning them.
Absolutely. And there's even more pictures in the actual book, people. So
Of course, yeah, and even
you
more
want to see them
stories.
all, you have to get the book, which I will be putting the link in the chat in a moment. We have a question from Steve Lyon.
The famous Steve Lyon.
Odin.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
It says, it's not even a question. It says, tell them about Odin. O-D-E-N.
I'm not sure what I can say about him.
And then someone else commented, well, now we need to know. So I don't know what's...
Now we need... Well, Steve's throwing me a curveball.
Okay.
Instead, I'm going to talk about Steve and I pitching and batting.
Okay.
We're total buddies and played 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade together. Later, I got cut from the team, which was not too happy for me. I never made the freshman team, and Steve did. But there was some point, I can't remember where I was batting and Steve was a pitcher, and he was a pretty good pitcher and also a great third baseman. So there we are, best friends, and he's winding up, and we're both staring at each other and having to face each other. And, you don't want your pride to because of your pride, I don't want to strike out. And of course he wants to strike me out. And then the weird part about the very end of that story is I cannot remember what happened at the end. Maybe Steve will type, I don't know if I got a hit. I don't think I did, but I don't know if I struck out either, or if he struck me out, or if there was a double or a single. So right, Steve typed something. If you remember I only remember the moment of staring at each other and kind of nodding as best friends and saying, okay, now we have to compete. So a very odd moment in like Little League history for me.
Yes. So, well, yeah, Steve, chime in, let us know. We have a question here from Billy. If an image doesn't come to you while you're writing, what do you do to find one? Is there a mental or physical process that helps you?
Ooh, these are great questions. Well, Billy, if it doesn't come to me, I usually end up making a short list. So 3 or 4 alternates, and sometimes the 4th one is the best idea. But either that or just leave a blank there. That helps too. And come back the next day and see if you can do it. But normally the way I work is 3 or 4 options, and then it's like circle the best one at the end, or choose one.
Yeah.
But good question. I think Billy's in California, I'm guessing. So nice. People from all over the place. Thanks for tuning in.
People are from all over. Yep, just have a bunch of other nice comments here. Particularly commenting on certain photos, like, a lot of praise for this one of the Cold Spring Rockies, which is a lovely photograph. Here's a comment from Anita. Of your work, Bill, crosses towns, villages, cities, countries. I've never walked a baseball field in my life, but tonight I did with my dad, who passed away many moons ago. Oh, so nice, Anita.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's Anita. Do you have last name?
Doolin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She's the one from Ireland.
Yeah.
Thank you for staying up, Anita. I think it's about one. It's almost St. Pat's Day there right now.
Oh, yeah. Which reminds me, if anyone, Bill, if anyone was not able to watch live because they are, somewhere in the world where it is the dead of night and they don't want to watch live, this video does remain available on our Facebook page and YouTube channel until the end of the internet. So you can send people our way, anyone who missed it tonight. Here's a comment from Steve. Odin is Gail Butt, our Legion coach, with the philosophy, boys, it's just a game. Now go out there and have fun. By the way, I struck you out.
No, I don't believe it. By the way, Steve, I got a double. All right. Well,
all right. So
we will continue until further notice.
Let's finish with this question, and while you answer it, I'm going to grab those links to the books on our website. So here's one from 8 Ace Nelson. Loved these 2 books. What are you working on now, Bill?
I'm working on another novel. I don't know if you mentioned that one. I have a novel that this is the first time I've mentioned it. It's a novel set during the turbulent years of the late 60s, the Vietnam War era, and it's going to be out in fall. So I'm editing that basically line by line, word by word. So it should be out in fall, October. Okay, and I'm excited. Unlike the Circling Toward Home book that took a couple months, this one took a couple decades to write.
So a little longer.
It's been a long project. Yeah. So I'm really excited to have it out finally. And it's sort of the part about it, with a war breaking out in Ukraine and Russia, it sort of parallels it more since it's dealing with Vietnam War era. Then when I first started it, I didn't quite have that parallels, what's going on in society or in the world today. So
yes, unfortunately, has gotten more relevant.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, thank you for saying it that way.
All right. Well, I have just dropped the links to Light at the Edge of the Field and Circling Toward Home on the Majors and Quinn website. Of course, you are by no means obligated to purchase them through Majors and Quinn. You can also go directly to publisher websites, but we really appreciate it if you do buy through our website. And we actually had a really good question at the very beginning of the hour. Are these books signed? They are not signed because Bill he's not in the Twin Cities. He hasn't been down to the store. So I think we will work out for sure a way to get any of you who purchase the book tonight or the next day, from the event, a signed book plate, and Bill and I will work together to make something happen. We'll send out book plates to anyone who purchases the book in the next couple days, and we'll make that happen.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Annie. That was great. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Yeah, from all over the world. This has been lovely, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their evening.
Yes.
Bye.
You too. Bye.